Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going, everybody? It's me, Comic Crack. It's Sunday, and it's going to be a probably quick stream tonight because I didn't really read anything this week. I did pick up a couple of books that I wanted to talk about. So we'll just get right into it. I wanted to start off with this, though. This is a pretty exciting goddamn thing today. Found myself a Marantz, what is it? PMD 360 cassette deck and recorder on Marketplace, and it's a freaking beauty. It fits beautifully in this little space that I have that you can't see. I've got this sort of like little table thing going on here, and I don't know, maybe I can show you here. Oh, no, I probably can't. Anyway, you'll just have to take my word for it. I've got this little kind of table that's set up here with my computer on it. And then there's like a secondary shelf. I got my little stash box, and now it's a perfect fit. It fits beautifully. It's got a really nice speaker. It's in beautiful shape. With my new shelving, I got some cassettes close by here. So this is kind of what I've wanted for a long time in this space. A nice, easy way to play all these cassettes that keep coming in the door. So it's a beaut. I took it apart earlier because I had to clean some of the pots. I found a what the heck do you call it? Service manual. I found a service manual online for the PMD 360. So it actually gives you detailed instructions how to take it apart. It's got a whole bunch of other information. I haven't read the whole manual yet. The service manual, there's 44 pages or whatever. I also found one on eBay. This one comes with, I don't have a close, of course. It also comes with just the user manual. I don't know what the hell I did with it. It's somewhere in amongst on a shelf somewhere. So it came with the original user's manual, which is also really cool to have. So I found a service manual on eBay. I don't know. I may, after Christmas, if it's still up there, I may get one just to kind of keep everything together. It would be a nice kind of package of stuff to have for in the future when I pass it on. All the information comes with it, but it's a beauty. It sounds fucking incredible. I really, really like it. The pots are mostly non-crunchy. Let's see, is this, I don't have it plugged in. Let's see if, I don't know how it's going to sound on this, this setup here. I'm listening to Meridian Brothers today. But the crackle's pretty much gone away. It's a beaut. Anyway, I don't know how that sounded. It's probably sounded like hell through the microphone. But so that was a really nice pickup today. So I found a couple of more volumes of BPRD, Hell on Earth. I found book 2 and 3. Book 3 is upstairs because I started reading that this afternoon. I thought I might actually get them both read within kind of a day, but that wasn't the case. I did read this pretty much in one sitting, though. There's quite a bit of a lag time on my end here. I don't know if, pardon me if that's showing up on your end there, but this continues to be really, really good. I powered through this book. There's a lot of great stories in here. There's a couple of one-shot stories here too, which I'm starting to see the end results of. One of my favorites has been this Long Death chapter 3. So this was I think it was just a 3-parter. First of all, look at this goddamn cover by Duncan Fegredo, I think is how you pronounce the name. Beautiful cover. Like that's one I'd love to see in single issue form. This is the kind of the werewolf story. So we have our group kind of going into the forest and getting some. There is a slight lag. Okay, hello Gorvidal. It's weird. I don't know why that is. I haven't done anything different. Sometimes, yeah, no, there's nothing scheduled that's currently running in the background, so I don't know why that would be. Anyway, whatevs. It won't be a long stream anyway. So they're going into the forest and kind of discovering demon after demon. And it's just like, again, the world building in this book is so much fun. All the stories kind of intertwine. There was another, like I said, I think out of all of these stories, though, these one-shot stories were my favorite. Yeah, this was a pretty entertaining one to start off our one-shots. The transformation of J.H. O'Donnell, talking about one of the characters. I sound fine. Okay, good to know. Talking about one of the characters and kind of why he is the way he is. Again, I think that if you've been following this for a long period of time, stuff like this would have bigger payoffs for you, getting to know these nuggets about the characters. The payoffs for me are still pretty great, even though I don't know the history of these characters. We do get some Hellboy in this one too, in this one shot. She really is. I think I'm hooked on this, honestly, Gore. It's I can see, again, it's like this was like every single story I turn to, this was probably my favorite. The Abyss of Time was a phenomenal story. This volume also has a ton of backup material, a buttload of it, and they actually talk a little bit about that story and how they gave the creator, they gave the artist on that one kind of free reign. But this one is so cool, and this is a key story that has come back in volume 3. This character has kind of come back. So there's a small group of them, and one guy picks up this sword type of weapon off of the shelf and immediately blacks out. And when he comes to, he's back in time in kind of like this Conan Savage Land kind of thing. And he is just kind of thrown as to where he is. His father in this timeline has just died, and now he's the king. Now he's the new tribal leader. So we get this history of this weapon, where it came from, how it relates to kind of the modern times in this battle for basically Earth. I mean, as all these monsters are kind of showing themselves in this kind of BPRD universe, or this Hellboy universe. Just every little story is really engaging. It's cool to see them all sort of weave together. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't sometimes that I was a little confused. Excuse me. But honestly, I'm not so confused that it pulls me out of it or makes me want to stop reading it by any stretch. If anything, it just feels like there's more mysteries to uncover with that. Sorry, what am I allergic to down here? What's going on? Yeah, so really, really great stuff. So many good stories. Book 3 has been fantastic as well. Rasputin has come back in this volume as well too. So you're getting a little bit of this sort of I don't know, espionage type of elements, I guess, in this book too. So good scores. These cost me, I think, about $15 a piece, and the price tag on them is $40 Canadian. So $15 a piece is a damn good deal. So I've got those first 3 volumes. I don't know if this Hell on Earth goes any further than those 3 volumes, but I mean, it has me wanting more. Rasa was saying I should go to Plague of Frogs next, so kind of go backwards a bit. It is a little bit of a daunting thing, as we all know, kind of digging into this kind of these bigger universes and stuff. Let me close some windows here. Maybe that will help something. It is a bit of a daunting thing going into such an expansive universe. There's a lot to read. I can't possibly get everything, so it's going to be kind of picking stories here and there. Yeah, so but I'm really digging it so far. So when I went to pick those up, it was actually from a guy who ran the comic shop here in town, Comic Factory 4, that was around the corner from my old office at the Union Hall. So it was him that had this stuff for sale. And something that's been on my list forever and a day is this Quest of the Time Bird that he also had. I haven't started reading this one. This is Titan Comics. I was really thrilled to see this on Marketplace. I kind of make too much of a habit, I guess, going to Marketplace these days. But it's so great to kind of browse through. And again, sometimes the algorithm is in your favor because I kind of look into a whole bunch of shit on Marketplace. It often gives me like that's where this Marantz tape deck came up just out of nowhere. So this is written by Serge Letendre and illustrated by Reggie Loisel, translated by Ivanka Hahenberger. This is, don't question it, that's how you pronounce it. This is first edition 2015. I started reading just a few pages just to get a taste of it. I haven't finished the first story. I think I'm going to dig it. It seems to be, you know, kind of fantasy. There's a quest, of course. There's a quest. She's sort of like a Red Sonja-ish type of character from what I'm seeing so far. But again, that's such a preliminary read. It looks great. The art and coloring look great. I see that the art changes a little bit throughout the series, but not necessarily in a bad way. So I'm really looking forward to digging into this. I don't know anything else about these creators. I think this artist did Peter Pan, like a more modern, updated version of Peter Pan in graphic novel form. I think it was the artist anyway. Jarrett was telling me about it when I went to pick up this book, and I'm sure that's the one because I know that I recognize the names, and I'm pretty sure I've heard this Peter Pan book talked about here on YouTube on some channels. So yeah, quest for the Time Bird. And then this afternoon I wanted to pick up volume 3 of Blam, but it was out, unfortunately. They were sold out at the bookstore. So I managed to grab a couple of other things, though. It wasn't my intention. I blame Analog Comics for one of these. And the other one is thanks to Paulo Costa. I didn't know that it was out. So Mikhail has a trilogy, like a New York trilogy. Giant was the first one. Boot Black was the second one, and the third book is out now, and they had one copy left called Harlem. I really enjoyed the first two books. Out of the first two, I would say that Giant was probably my favorite read. I really liked this story a lot. Boot Black was good too, but I just think that Giant kind of edged it out a little bit. This is New York City 1931 for this one. It looks just as gorgeous as the other ones. They've kind of kept the same size. This is NBM Graphic Novels that's putting this one out. So I'll give you kind of samples of the interior pages. I'm really excited to read this one. I'm actually probably going to take a break from BPRD and read this one tonight. Pretty stoked to get into this one. So shout out to Paulo Costa. I don't know. This was probably at least a month or two ago that he was talking about this one in one of the Friday chats. Actually, it might have even been longer than that, to be honest. It just kind of popped into my head when I saw it on the shelf. So thank you very much, Paulo. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this quite a bit. So we'll talk about this, and I might actually, once I'm finished this one, I might do a reread of the other two, and maybe be able to talk about this kind of trilogy a little more in depth. Beautiful stuff there, man. So that was today. And then the last one from today. So Analog Comics talked about this in his latest To Be Read video, which if you don't know Analog Comics, what the hell is wrong with you? You should go and check out his channel. Amazing content. Really great guy. A lot of amazing books he talks about. And then this afternoon For the Love of Comics was talking about this one too. So this is Cormac McCarthy, The Road, from who put it out. This is Abrams Comic Arts. So Analog Comics showed off just a couple of, hey, Dan Elson, how you doing? Analog Comics showed off a little bit of the interior art, and I was immediately sold. I know the story of the road. I've never read the Cormac McCarthy. I know that No Country for Old Men, I think, wasn't that a Cormac McCarthy kind of style, or was it an actual Cormac McCarthy book? I don't remember. But I know that there was a movie of the road as well too, wasn't there? I never saw it, but I believe this is the book. Is the road the book where he doesn't use punctuation, where McCarthy avoids using any sort of punctuation throughout the book, so it reads as kind of almost one long run-on sentence as I try to put a sentence together. This is gorgeous. So on his video, the art looked gorgeous. In person, it's even more stunning. So I'm very excited about this one. And again, Manu Larsenet, I don't know the name. I've never heard of him before. Analog Comics talks a little bit about him in his video, in his latest video. So I'm really interested. Both those McCarthy books are great. No punctuation is weird, but you get used to it. Okay. But I mean, look at these pages, just page after page of gorgeously bleak artwork throughout this thing, man. So I don't even really want to go much further through it. It's beautifully done. It's beautifully put together. I like McCarthy's books, especially All the Pretty Horses and Blood Meridian. Yes, No Country for Old Men is his book. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so looking forward to that. Is this going to be the shortest Comic Crack video ever? Probably, because that's all I got. There's been politics stuff, but I'm not prepared enough today to kind of dig into or show you some links. And then music-wise, there's always music. Actually, let's do that one quickly, because I did discover an album. I don't know. Did I talk about this one already? Maybe I did. I played it on the radio show last weekend, so maybe we talked about it on the show. If we have, I apologize, but you're going to hear about it again because it's such a good frickin' album. I listened to it back to back. Let's do this. There we go. So the band is Avalanche Kaito, and the album was called Taliticum. So Burkina Faso is where the vocalist is from, and then the other two guys, I think they're both from Brussels. One of them, the percussionist here that's pictured here, he played in some noise bands and some experimental bands. So the guy the singer from Burkina Faso, whose name is Kaito, he discovered his stuff on YouTube. And when him and his partner moved to Belgium, moved to Brussels, I think that's where they first met. She kind of started taking him out to shows, and they met and started making music together. This guy here is the guitarist who also had some bands on his own as well, too, or with other people. And it seems to me, especially with this album, it seems to me that this guitarist has maybe had a lot of influence on this particular album. It is such a great mix of kind of traditional. There's really that Western Saharan kind of sound to it. But it has this really distinct flavor, really nice percussion. But then it also has like a real neat mix of, like, there's one song that I is really kind of electronic music heavy, almost like dance music heavy, a little darker. Then there's one that really kind of reminds me of the band Shellac and some of that like noise rock stuff. Then there's stuff that's just kind of vocalizations. Kaito also plays the flute and does some vocalizing too. I can't recommend this album enough. This is really exceptional. There's some live performances, KEXP session on YouTube that's worth checking out as well. It's also good because at the end they do a kind of an interview with the three of them, and you can see them kind of trying to figure out English not being their first language, and then trying to communicate with each other, and then not quite understanding what each other are saying, even in French. Really, really great to see. And again, it's one of the bonuses of this age of the internet bringing us to closer together, having these particular human beings mix and make music together that's pulling from all sorts of different areas. It's goddamn impressive, I gotta say. They have a couple of albums. I listened to this self-titled Avalanche Kaito. It's pretty good too. I'd say this newer one edges it out, but this isn't a bad place to start. I wasn't taken by either of these singles. They just didn't do much for me. So they have 2 full lengths and then 2 singles. And of course, as all the time we talk about on here, you can find these on good old Bandcamp, but highly, highly recommended. So check out Avalanche Kaito if you're into listening to something a bit different. If we're on music, knowing you like synthesizers and weird music, do I know the band Zombie? Fuck yeah, I know the band Zombie. Yeah, they're killer. I haven't listened to them in a long time, but yes, I absolutely do know Zombie. They're really great. Teeth of Glass has a new album out on Heimat der Catastrophe as well too. I ordered that and a couple of other tapes. There's a Canada Post strike going on right now. It's been going on for quite a few weeks. So that's kind of halted the mail. And I've got a few things coming in, so I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit of a shock once the strike ends and all that stuff comes in. I have a feeling I'm going to get an onslaught of a few kind of packages all at the same time. That is the one thing I guess we can quickly talk about. So Canada Post is a Crown corporation. I don't fully understand the Crown corporation model personally, even after reading a bit about it online. I guess I don't quite understand why Canada Post isn't fully funded by the federal government as a not-for-profit service. So I don't kind of fully understand the history, and so I hesitate to say too much about it for the fear of sounding completely ignorant about my own kind of postal system here in Canada. But it does puzzle me that it's kind of not based on a not-for-profit and fully run by the federal government. Not to say that would solve all the problems and people would get paid properly, not at all. But there's also the worry of if it's federal and it's a service, then you couldn't strike and then you'd be sort of stuck. So there's a whole bunch of pros and cons with some of that stuff. One thing that is happening currently, though, is that Canada Post is laying people off that are on strike, which is a big no-no. They found some sort of loophole where they're discontinuing some of the positions. So there's rights within striking workers that if there's a job, they can return to their job if it still exists, I think is what the wording is, some sort of wishy-washy wording like that. So they have now made some of the positions non-existent. So now there's some people that don't have a job to come back to. And of course, the union, rightfully so, is saying that they're using this as a scare tactic to get everybody else to kind of back off of the strike and want to come back to work. So the beauty of a third party that's actually for working people, that's a much bigger conversation. The NDP party, Jagmeet Singh is the leader of that party. He's been on the picket lines with the striking postal workers and saying that they're already looking into taking them to court over these kind of layoffs and stuff, and they're supporting the workers. One of the things that he's worried about is that Trudeau may force them back to work because obviously it's the holiday season. And as things get backed up, that also causes other delays and other problems with planes and packages and stuff like that. Because I'm assuming, I don't know if things are getting unloaded off of planes or how that exactly works. I don't know what kind of deal they have while they're on strike when it comes to packages coming in by air. And it's not that's the thing, Gore. It's not a viable third party. They've never won a federal election. They've won provincial elections. Currently here in Manitoba, NDP is in power. For the most part in Manitoba, it's NDP or Conservatives. We kind of like flip-flop back and forth. So right now it's the NDP's turn in office. The NDP have never held enough power federally to win that election, win the prime ministership. So they end up usually siding with the Liberals, which is where my kind of dislike of some of their things in more recent history has sprouted from. They align themselves a little too much with the liberals sometimes when they should be that voice pushing up against them. Again, my personal opinion. Not to say that the NDP doesn't do good things. I've been pretty much a lifetime supporter of the NDP. It's only recently that I've started to kind of step away from them. So, hello, Damien. Hello. So hearing this problem with your postal service, does that mean if I wanted to send you a Christmas gift of music and comics, it wouldn't make it to you? I mean, I would always accept gifts. I love gifts. Yeah, I mean, if you did actually, obviously you don't have to send me anything, Dan. I appreciate it. That's very kind of you. There's other ways. I think there's DHL. There's obviously like FedEx and things like that too. I know that some of these other postal services are a little bit more expensive, or it's just waiting until the strike is over. Like I said, I can't imagine that it's going to last super long, but I mean, who knows, right? It's lasted longer than it has in the past. By this point, we're probably pushing a month into this strike now. So I'm kind of surprised that it's been going this long. But maybe we'll have something kind of break soon. I'd love to see both our parties replaced in the U.S., but as Gore Vidal implies, it is probably a pipe dream. I don't think it's a pipe dream. I think that, like I often talk about on here, and again, if you watch anything from Shama Sawant and the Workers' Party, the Workers' Strike Back, I think that's all of our best option is starting something from labor. So getting involved with labor organizations, getting involved with labor-led organizations, getting involved, like looking into Shama Sawant and what she's doing, and kind of getting that way, because I think that's where it comes from, getting all the workers united to start their own party. Yeah, support the strike and send New Year's presents. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Definitely support it. I've seen some unfortunate things online from people in Canada talking a bunch of absolute horse shit, which is unfortunate, saying, well, how dare they ruin Christmas? It's like, well, they're not ruining Christmas. It's the employers that are causing them these delays. They've had a third party come in to help try to negotiate a deal, and apparently that hasn't gone too well either. People just talk a lot of nonsense online. What a shock. What a surprise. You heard it here first, folks. People talk bullshit online. I know you haven't heard it before. Third parties in the U.S. are gifts to the Republicans. I can see how that plays, but then to me, the Democrats have to do better. Like in your last election, the Democrats didn't offer fucking anything other than we're not that guy, and that's not good enough. So they have to actually, and that's why it's important to kind of have this insurgents or this kind of force coming from labor and backed by labor, because that's where you can potentially get a lot of votes. So it's one of those things of like, a two-party system doesn't cut it. And again, I've said it in the past, I don't know if a three-party system cuts it either. I feel like the whole system needs an overhaul. What that looks like, I'm not smart enough to give any sort of opinion on that. I just know that there's a lot of things that aren't working, and there's a lot of people that aren't being listened to, and there's a lot of people that aren't being kind of their votes aren't being fought for, and they're definitely not being listened to. So, but that's a whole other ball of wax. We're not that guy. Should have been enough, but eggs are expensive, so tyranny is. We're not that guy. Should have been enough. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm missing something in that sentence there, Forgerelli. We got George Bush completely because of Ralph Nader. Yeah, and I mean, again, I hesitate to talk into too much detail about that specific election. I do have some vague memories of it. But yeah, I mean, I won't argue with you. I do feel, again, like this idea that third parties kind of ruin it. Again, it's this idea of the lesser of two evils. You eventually get to a point where it's the evil of two lessers, you know, like I heard on Al Jazeera there. And again, like as a lifetime supporter of NDP, I heard that my whole life. Anytime I would tell people I'm voting, well, you're just wasting your vote. No, I'm not. I'm voting for the party that I actually want to gain power. I'm voting for the party that actually, um, not I'm voting for the party that I actually want to be in power, right? Like, so I'm not I'm not spoiling it for somebody. They just need to do better, and they need to fight more to get my vote if they really want it. If those other two parties do want my vote, then they need to offer us something as the working class. Friends and acquaintances voted for that other guy because they blame the current president for inflation and believe Trump is a successful businessman who will bring inflation down. Yeah. And I mean, again, like we've talked about it before, I hope I'm going to make it clear one more time. Trump is a fucking moron. Don't get me wrong. He's a fucking con artist, and he's a lying sack of shit. And he's absolutely not going to save anybody. It's just the thing is, the Democrats left the door open when they continue to alienate and push away the working class. So they left the door open for a grifter to come in who sort of can speak their language and offer them a solution. So, I mean, one of the things that I've been hearing on some of the discourse that I've been listening to is that this election was really a vote against the current political system and the dissatisfaction. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I heard was even Trump himself got less votes this election than he did when he lost to Biden, and the Democrats' numbers went way down. So voter turnout in general was lower. So, I mean, what are you going to do about that? How do you get people engaged? It's all of these conversations. And as far as this goes for Jarelli, I mean, I apologize. I like you as a person, but that's a load of horse shit. That's not enough. You can't just be not that guy and then be funding a genocide and be not taking care of people and not even talking to the working class. Like it's just not enough anymore for people, right? So all about inflation, which is funny because those complaining drive $80,000 trucks that are gas guzzlers is pretty funny. Yeah. I again, like, please don't quote me on any of this. I think that's what I was hearing. That, and again, that to me speaks way more volume than necessarily who won. It's that's crazy to me that the voter turnout was even less. Like, he lost last time, and this time he won by a fucking landslide, arguably, and had less votes than he did that previous time. Like, that's crazy to me, man. That's really crazy. So I guess maybe the last thing, since we're on this, so currently at IATSE, currently at our local, we've got an election going on, and after some long thought and long conversation, I'm running for president of the local, and my wife is running for treasurer. So we've been also deep into, speaking of campaigning, we've been deep into campaigning on our side. We're holding an event this week, this Wednesday. Voting opens on the 5th for us. So the 4th, we're having like a meet and greet that we've kind of put our own money into, and sent out invites to all kind of 700 plus members that we have. So people can come down and meet us. We've sort of got a little coalition that have been talking about running for quite a while. Some of us for years, we've been discussing it. So we sort of have a small group of us of about, I think we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we're at 5. Unfortunately, we had one person drop out. They just couldn't commit to the 3-year term. So there's 5 of us that are running. So we're going to have a little kind of meet and greet open house with coffee and snacks and things, because we're all just kind of members who are frustrated with the way that things are currently going. And I mean, considering the way that I talk these days, I feel like it is one of those things where it does feel kind of helpless as just kind of a human being watching the news, and especially when a presidential election comes up or a prime minister election comes up, it's one of those things where you do feel like it doesn't matter who I vote for. I'm really not going to have that much of an impact. It's not going to change things too much. And then this idea of kind of acting locally and again, getting involved with the union is something I've been doing for a long time. I definitely needed a break considering how things ended, but I feel kind of re-energized and have, have a vision of wanting to try to at least have conversations about bringing our union forward, right? So Yeah, we had a very long discussion about it before we decided to kind of do that. It wasn't an easy decision for either of us. So we are making it. We're going for it, and we'll see what happens, right? So along with inflation, I think anti-woke talk grabbed the working class here. Yeah, unfortunately, any of those buzzwords are always going to be used as a weapon one way or the other. Speaking of anti-woke, I guess we are doing a stream because I'll talk about this, and then I also wanted to talk a little bit about Adam Curtis, this documentarian, or as he calls himself, journalist. On the good old algorithm, I didn't watch the whole thing because it's like 2.5 hours. Somebody actually put a video together about Comicsgate. I don't remember the channel. I'm absolutely not going to promote it here. I am not suggesting you go and look for it by any stretch. The one thing of note that I thought was really interesting about it is that he does actually talk in detail about Captain Cummings and talk about how Captain Cummings is kind of like was the kind of originator of what we now know as Comicsgate. And again, from our little corner of YouTube, I mean, fuck me, man, I can say that's pretty much goddamn certain, because he was the first one I saw talking in the way of what eventually became Comicsgate. So I was kind of surprised. I couldn't resist it. I did watch some of it just to kind of get a sense of what it was, and then turned it off. But I was surprised to see that it wasn't just focused on that other fucking knucklehead who sort of took over that movement. So that was a little nugget from our from our corner of the world here. He got an increase in young men voting for him. They liked his chauvinism, but they also like what they also like, though, is they like his fuck the system. You guys tried to get me. I'm not perfect. I'm still here. Like, again, I think that there's a whole bunch of people in working class who have been told for a long time that they don't talk right. You can't say that anymore. You can't do that anymore. Like, there is that out there in the world, and people are kicking back against it. So they see someone like Trump in many different facets. They see him as a con artist, and they accept it. They see him as a successful businessman, regardless of what the facts are. But they also see him as someone who's going to kind of buck the system and ruin the deep state and all these kind of things, right? Like, actually attack the deep state. And I think he speaks the language of a lot of these disaffected or disenchanted, I guess is a better word, voters who, again, labor has been pushed further and further. And again, even here in Canada, it's not like it hasn't happened here as well, but I would say especially in the States, it feels to me, as from an outsider perspective, that labor has been pushed further and further away in your country. And it's crazy because, again, they're going to go somewhere, and you just leave it open for a fucking grifter to come in and scoop up all those votes. Absolutely, Damien. It's a deep anger, especially in popular culture like film, TV shows, and comics. Yeah, which is exactly why I've said here time and time again, we need to get away from all of those terms. I'm sick of the term woke. I'm sick of the term SJW, but I'm also sick of Trump as a Nazi. I'm also sick of all of these things, right? Like, we got to get away from these kind of catchphrase words that we then allow them to be used as weapons against us and propaganda against us. Third parties on the local levels seem to be a best approach. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that Kshama Sawant talks about too. She's like, hey, listen, we're not even at a spot right now where we want to run a candidate in any election. Forget about like a presidential election. She's like, that is way outside of our vision right now. They're really focusing on, we need to build up a mass ground level movement first. And that's the very, very first step. She's really interesting to listen to. Like, I'd strongly recommend listening to Kshama Sawant. Put the spelling of her name there in the chat. Where are we here? Where'd my stuff go? Seeing the same patterns. Yes, the third parties must convince young people to vote for them consistently and not be easily illusioned. Young people don't vote, and third parties are a waste of time. Yeah, young people don't vote. That's really difficult to do. Yeah, again, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, Forgerelli. I just don't agree. Third parties are definitely not a waste of time. Good old Captain Cummings. Yeah, absolutely. Say his name 3 times. The real damage will be in the federal courts. The next 4 years of appointments will derail future progressive legislation, just like in the 30s. And honestly, all of these appointees, like anytime I'm seeing, what's this guy today, Cash something or other. It's interesting hearing some of the people that he ends up getting talking, because you'll hear these nuggets of like, oh, that's an interesting idea, or oh yeah, I agree with that. But then you keep listening, and then they rapidly go off into fucking cuckoo banana land that is just like, holy shit, man, you know, you guys are all dangerous. I remember Cummings. It was when I joined YouTube. Yeah. I try not to think about the courts, GV. That's a really depressing part. The world in general is better than it's ever been, but people are bored and decadent and stupid. There's that. Lack of education. Forgerelli, ignorance builds on itself. The people that grew up during the golden age of education are the biggest Trump supporters. Those courts will side against labor every time. Well, and again, let's not kid ourselves. Regardless of which idiot fucking union leader went in campaign, which again, like, you know, my feelings on that, unions have no place backing political leaders. They have no place backing political parties. Politics, they should not fucking be involved in politics. Unions are there to work for their members. Your membership in a union is going to be a mix of whatever. It's going to be a mix of Trump and, in this case, Kamala Harris supporters. It's just it's bonkers, but none of them are there for labor, like absolutely none of them. It's all about the courts to Gore Vidal. So the last thing I guess we'll quickly talk about then is I saw an interesting documentary. It was a name I'm not familiar with. Hyper normalization, I think is what it's called. Yes. So it is on YouTube. I was watching it and it was really choppy. So I ended up finding it elsewhere. And his name is Adam Curtis. It's an interesting, I'm still kind of mulling it over in my head as to what I think about the documentary on the whole and kind of what it says. He's a pretty impressive documentary filmmaker. Again, he would call himself a journalist. Hypernormalization, and Adam Curtis is his name. If you can find it somewhere other than YouTube, I would suggest do so. It's a long documentary, but honestly, I found it pretty fascinating. Again, even though I don't know if I agree with some of the things he's putting out there, he ends up talking about kind of all of our parts in kind of the way the world is now. He's also got another documentary that I was watching. It's a 4-parter. And its premise is Sigmund Freud is kind of the basis for it. And that sort of, what do you call that? That form of psychology that kind of sprouted from Freud. I'm completely blanking on names. This is where I usually prepare for stuff and usually open some tabs. But his relative was a guy who was heavy into advertising and realizing how he could use manipulation when it came to voting. He was the guy whose ad campaign, getting women to smoke cigarettes, he sold it as this Freudianism was out there, that it was this phallic symbol and it was going to be very powerful for women to smoke and take over that symbol of the male phallus. And what he did was he had some women go out that they paid, that at a certain time they were supposed to very dramatically light up cigarettes and kind of walk down the street. He went and told the press about this, that there was some, Jesus Christ, my words have completely, suffragettes who were protesting by smoking. So it got a lot of coverage. And in turn, that ended up starting to sell cigarettes, because he started labeling cigarettes as a very revolutionary act, even though he was working for the tobacco companies themselves and he was working in advertising. So it goes through this, I think it's a 4-part documentary, and it goes through different eras using all that that analysis and all these kind of things, and what the effect that it had on the population, as well as the way propaganda worked. And it's super interesting so far, because they end up talking to this guy whose name I'm blanking on. I think he was Freud's cousin, I think. So they end up kind of going to some interview footage with him from 1991 where he's talking about some of these things. It's really interesting. So Adam Curtis, I would suggest kind of getting on to some of his stuff. No, as far as this, yeah, no, don't sweat it. I don't mind talking about this stuff. I'm I'm conscious of where we're talking about it, and I don't want to get in any sort of internet beefs because politics is a heavy topic. But I would hope that everybody who kind of watches me and watches this show is sort of in a similar mindset of like, these are ideas, these are opinions. This doesn't mean that if you think one thing that we're now mortal enemies. Again, if you've been listening to me, we need to get away from that kind of stuff. We have way more in common than we don't. We need to stop allowing people to divide us and push us apart. It's not your neighbor that's your enemy. It's not the Trump supporter that's your enemy. It's not the Biden supporter, Kamala Harris supporter that's your enemy. It's business, it's government, it's all of these agencies outside of it that we need to be kind of coming together to fight against and for the betterment of all of us. So I hope that that message comes through when we do talk about this stuff. The automobile industry did the same thing when it convinced men to buy trucks instead of cars. Yeah. And then they started putting truck nuts on stuff. Those trucks are very Freudian too. Do you guys, I don't know, is it just a Canadian thing? Like the nuts, the people have like testicles hanging off the trailer hitch of their trucks. Is that a North American thing? Many of the customers at my LCS drive big trucks. They're all men. Rarely see a woman driving one. Fortunately, I'm cool with it as long as you don't bring up that Brianna Joy Gray again. Hey, so speaking of Brianna Joy Gray, did I tell you about the interview that she did with what's her name? I did tell you about it, didn't I? Because I think that's the last time we talked about it. Man, I'm so good at names of people. Videos. Whitney Webb. That was the interview. Whitney Webb. It was a great interview. I don't watch a lot of Brianna Joy Gray's. I don't watch a lot of Brianna Joy Gray's Bad Faith, but I did watch her when she was with that Robbie Swaby. Hey man, you brought it up. You dangled that carrot there for Jarelli. I did watch her when she was on The Hill, and I thought that dynamic was really good because she was one of the only voices that was kind of talking about the genocide that's currently going on. So just for you, for Jarelli, truck nuts are universal. I figured as much, but I don't know. Sometimes there's these weird little things like Hawaiian pizza. Who the fuck knew that was just a Canadian thing? I've seen those testicle trucks here too. Yeah. They're really ridiculous. Anyway, on that note, thanks very much for hanging out, everybody. For Jarelli, it's good to see you, man. Sleepy Reader, good to see you as well. Gore Vidal, of course, always good to see you as well. Did I miss anybody from the chat? I think it was just Dan Elson, of course, way at the top there. I don't know if you're still there, Dan, but always good to see you as well. Some suggested I should date his sister, but first he said I needed a bigger car. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. I might have missed a bit of a chat. Anyway, thanks very much, everybody. That's Sunday. Have a good week. And we'll talk to you next week. We'll see if Rasa and I have a chance to chat next Sunday. We didn't this Sunday, but maybe we'll get together next week, and hopefully I'll have read more. Good news is that now the Bible will be taught at our elementary school, so everything will be well. Yeah. Good to see you as well, GV. Later.